Hello everyone, thanks for being here. The idea of this presentation is to share ideas and examples and provoke new thinking about creating natural play and learning spaces in Michigan State Parks. My name is Robin Moore. I'm speaking on behalf of the Natural Learning Initiative, NLI, at the College of Design, NC State University. We have the privilege of working with Michigan DNR-Parks and Recreation Division on such an incredibly important project. We'll start with brief thoughts about the global background of a children and nature project such as this. We'll share examples of what nature, play and learning activity settings look like on the ground, selected from NLI's work of the last 25 years and 25 years prior. We'll visit significant projects pre and post NLI that may have implications for site interpretation and programming related to science learning, cultural development, and children with special needs. We will cover additional thinking about design process parameters for nature play and learning spaces that may be relevant for state parks. We'll close with some thoughts about management choices for natural play and learning spaces within a state park context. The big idea is about how these kinds of environments can motivate a new generation dedicated to creating a cultural shift in understanding, including passion for the future health of planet Earth and the human society it nurtures. Bear in mind that we have lived here in nature for the last 99.999% of human evolution. Our urban, globally connected digital world is very, very, very recent. Engaging children in nature-based play and learning early in life may help generate, create, and encourage a new generation dedicated to caring for the planet. One ray of hope is that progress is already underway. The global movement of young people needs to grow faster to support proliferation of what now are called nature-based solutions, as Michigan State Parks are in effect proposing. Here's an example of a small, intimate oasis prompting children's curiosity to explore and discover, in this case, how water is captured in a rain garden. Where is this intriguing place? In Brooklyn Bridge Park on the East River Shore, New York City. NLI was part of the design team led by Michael van Valkenburg and Associates, or MVVA. Although not a state park, the rain garden demonstrates the viability of creating such spaces, even in a highly urban environment where you might think it would be impossible. The 104 sites in the Michigan State Park system, largely managed directly by the agency, are an incredible resource and set of opportunities for starting to embark on a new way of thinking about places for children and families. The most important factor in designing for natural play and learning in any site is biodiversity. Biodiversity is the dynamic global web of life of plants and animals, including humans and microorganisms enveloping our planet, which together with the atmosphere and oceans forms the biosphere, evolving for the last 3.8 billion years. Michigan State Parks, inspired by the growing children and nature movement, is departing from standardized playground equipment to bring children and their families back in the woods to play and learn in biodiverse, intimate spaces. Let's remind ourselves of the lesson learned during the pandemic, that being outdoors is associated with reduced sickness in children. Why? Because germs are transmitted more easily indoors, especially in school and child care center classrooms. However, outdoors could be no more than a monoculture of mown grass or even asphalt. Now add biodiversity and the associated microbiome. Playing in these spaces promotes physical, mental, social, emotional health, stimulates curiosity and outdoor learning. Sensory stimulation supports brain development, sensory integration, reduces stress, increases attention functioning, supports agency, executive functions, positive behavior, boosts immune systems, reduces risk of myopia or short-sightedness, promotes a sense of community, inclusion, and well-being, provides airy, shady, comfortable surroundings, promotes joyful, active lifestyles, Biodiversity provides all of this and more, which is why human beings have thrived for so many millennia. The scientific proof of these benefits is rapidly growing. Here we are in the Miyazaki lab at Chiba University, Japan, working with graduate students who have wired one of us to brain scanning equipment while smelling essential oils of roses, but it could also be cedar trees or any number of other species offering health impacts. Within 30 seconds, the brain chemistry is recorded live on the wall. Amazing. At the other end of the spectrum from empirical science is the importance of being in nature for individual children. Any one of us lucky enough to grow up close to nature, as I was, freely roaming the landscape, remembers the peaceful, calm feeling of immersion in a fascinating kind of magical world of reverie. As this 6-year-old expresses in her body language, spending all day investigating the natural world of the Munich City Forest Kindergarten, a short subway ride from the city center. There she sits on a sandbar, her feet in the running water, within eye-shot of the teacher, softly singing to herself, oblivious to everything else around. These young children turn over stones to find out what lives underneath. No one tells them what to do as they investigate nature's affordances together, building social-emotional empathy with each other as they discover life, beginning with simple organisms like earthworms. Attentive, knowledgeable, caring educators, in this case a retired volunteer, may join in the action, encouraging motivation to learn by extending the knowledge base beyond what children may discover through informal play. Michigan has tremendous potential for natural play and learning because of its statewide biodiversity. With so many sub-regional differences, each of the 104 park sites offers its own unique array of biodiversity. In this regard, 3 primary habitat factors are more important than others, namely plants, soil, and water. Plant selection is critical. Of course, each state park has existing ecosystems. However, creation of special natural play and learning places may provide opportunities for increasing biodiversity with plants, especially selected for their suitability, as documented in Plants for Play, including sensory stimulation, play value, edible bounty, shade quality, seasonal interest, wind protection, visual complexity, wildlife attraction, soil erosion control, drought tolerance, poisonous plants, from slightly to severely. That's at the functional level, but also important for children is the experiential, expressive level. Here, children are celebrating sunflowers. Black plastic petals were laid out to block the sun, then removed, dramatically illustrating the importance of sunlight for plant growth. Plants come in layers adapted to the soil and moisture conditions of the site, as deciduous and evergreen canopy, an understory of shrubs, and other ground-level plants close to children. Tree locations should provide patches of shade to protect children from overexposure to sunlight, while allowing sunlight to penetrate to the ground level to support healthy plant growth. As water is the most popular play setting, it is easy to engage young people in learning about the water cycle through play in existing streams or water features adapted for the purpose. For this reason, it's important to keep water on site, as well as for healthy animal habitats. Help children learn about leaf layers that provide habitats for microorganisms, return nutrients to the soil, and protect soil surfaces from eroding. Small interventions can work really well, especially for very young children. The attraction of water is just phenomenal. Here, a mud-splattered mixed age group messing around in what is essentially a park drainage ditch, fortunately not piped, attractive even to older kids who still like playing with mud. Soil, dirt, or earth play can be installed in many ways as a designated activity setting, surrounded by trees for shade and droppings of leaves and sticks, adds natural, loose parts play possibilities. Universal design is an important framework for thinking about natural settings in parks. The basic idea is that spaces should be designed to serve the needs of all users, regardless of limitations, to the furthest extent possible. Realizing, for example, that topography can be a severe limitation, universal design addresses ADA basics, meaning that in a park, a primary pathway accessible route connects parking, entry, restrooms, and activity settings. Primary pathways also create curvy looping lines of travel with surprises around the next corner, and access to ground-level settings so important for social inclusion, as well as elevated settings that offer the challenging attraction of prospect and refuge. The Play for All guidelines is a relevant source for designers using activity setting as the primary unit of design content. Kids Together Playground was designed from universal and sustainable points of view, with participation of children and families in the process. Opening in 2000, the playground is in reality a family recreation area, providing a mix of manufactured equipment in a biodiverse constructed landscape. The aerial photograph from 2015 shows the tree coverage with the curvy pathways still visible, now in 2024 completely hidden by trees. Users are immersed in cool, shady, multisensory, diverse natural surroundings. Because of its comfort level, Kids Together attracts families from across the county and a popular birthday party venue. It was co-produced by Carrie Parks and Rec and Kids Together, a non-profit organization, and designed by Robin Moore with Little and Little, landscape architects. Using Kids Together as an ongoing research and professional development site, NLI recently collaborated with NC State colleagues to produce an interactive virtual tour, or IVT, of the site using high-definition, three-dimensional photography so that virtual visitors from anywhere around the world can interact with each of the settings and be informed by the background research. Please enjoy this short clip. Visit 1, the challenge of horizontal movement. This informative visit demonstrated how a variety of undulating, curving pathways and shallow steps afforded challenges to someone with low muscle tone. Together with a family friend, they played on one of the talking benches, interactive art objects in the entry plaza made of curly steel talking tubes with mouth earpieces at each end, which afforded a fun moment of rudimentary verbal interaction. These mobility study videos demonstrate how a wheelchair user navigates the park through the paved primary pathway. In the first video, the caregiver encourages the wheelchair user to ambulate and catch the chair as they push it around the park. In the second video, she uses the chair as an assisted walking device, climbing up the slope to the young children's play structure. This photo illustrates how the accessible sand play table accommodates wheelchair users. The raised design allows adults to sit at arm's length to the children playing. Features like this exemplify Kids Together Playground's universal design. The roll-on swing offers easy access to users of all ages, including wheelchairs and babies in strollers. All enter directly off the looping pathway, perching at each end and in the middle, making it go, mixed together, having fun.
Do fast. Okay, here we go.
This mobility study video shows how a wheelchair user easily enters and plays on the horizontal structure. The caregiver pushes the wheelchair at a jogging pace through the structure, showcasing its accessibility. Universal design recognizes the importance of including human development from early childhood to adolescence, from year 0 through 17, as defined internationally in the Convention on the Rights of the Child. A range of activity settings are needed that at one end stimulate sensory learning of very young children, and at the other end, the needs of adolescents hanging out on planet Earth, in this case, in a space carefully designed, thinking it could be a socially cool spot in the park. It's a prospect and refuge, affording a feeling of seclusion while looking out across the landscape, a place to chat and share life's lessons, and maybe school assignments. An environment and behavior evidence-based approach to designing and managing outdoor space is aimed at supporting predictable, appropriate actions by users. Nature play and learning places are composed of activity settings that incorporate, produce, or predict particular behaviors. Activity settings appropriate for state parks may look like this selection from work collected by Natural Learning Initiative over the last 25 years, mixed with some earlier examples. The Nature Play Corps pilot program provided a 3-week internship program for 15 college students from across the country, with all kinds of backgrounds, interested in children and nature practice. The site was the Alligator River National Wildlife Refuge in coastal North Carolina. The program was created and managed by NLI in collaboration with National Wildlife Federation, with playwork professionals from the North Carolina Zoo and the UK Eden Project. Groups of interns created play habitat narratives each week to be piloted with children from the local community each Friday. 3 cycles of 5 narratives were piloted, totaling 15. Each narrative reflected key indigenous animals of the region: Sky Island celebrating migratory birds, bare necessities of black bears, and Bug City aimed at increasing awareness of the importance of insects in all ecosystems, and in this location, millions of fireflies as an indicator species. I Spy with Animal Eyes was a beautiful theme for kids to explore. Adventure theater and the Great Fire Escape, recognizing the huge refuge fire raging at the time further down the coast, and celebrating the endangered red wolves being bred in the refuge, now becoming re-established in North Carolina. Be Great Migrate was another take on migratory birds. Moving Earth was a fascinating low-lying place where a layer of decomposed vegetation literally felt like it was floating when walked on. Picture This used recycled frames and other framing devices to emphasize narrative details. Of course, hands in the mud, no problem. Just a few words about the nature-based play and learning process parameters that may influence design and management of spaces that support the process. The 6 C's of intrinsic motivation, some mentioned already, related to nature play and learning, include curiosity, intrinsic force of a child's playful interaction with the physical world, choice, constantly changing diversity of experiential opportunity, the antidote to boredom, content, the thing itself, an infinite variety of plants, animals, soil, water, air, sunlight, and tools used to explore. Collaboration, bringing children together to explore an idea, to execute a project, and to make friends through shared experience. Challenge, exercises agency and self-efficacy as the child alone and children together take risks, test their understanding, and learn how the world works. Context, transfer of skills and understanding from nature, play, and learning places to classroom, to home, to family and friends. Recognizing and seeking ways to interconnect the three modes of learning is perhaps the most important step in creating effective nature, play, and learning settings. Achieving nature-based equity is a variable challenge across each mode. Informal learning means learning through free play with nature, wherever conserved or regenerated, in child-friendly green infrastructure. Equity requires overarching political will and related investment in underserved communities. Non-formal learning means learning through non-formal programs in nature-based places like museums, zoos, botanical gardens, and parks, including state parks, potentially with non-profit organization partners and/or trained volunteers, docents, interns. Equity is policy-driven with organizational commitment. Facility locations may be challenging to access for some communities. Formal learning means programs delivered by certified educators in schools with natural settings that meet mandated curricular requirements. Equity requires a system-wide nature-based mandate and budget commitment. The core of design thinking related to nature-based play and learning was acquired during a 10-year natural experiment to renature the asphalted grounds of Washington Elementary School in Berkeley, California, working with dedicated students from multiple disciplines across campus. Successful survival of planting was due to the fencing system used to define looping pathways through the third of an acre space, designed to reflect regional ecosystems. Eventual species counts included 216 plants, 102 animals, plus 43 bird species, or 145 total species of animals living in that ecosystem. The massive change in biodiversity clearly influenced curricular content and children's learning through nature by playing in it, by experiencing it, and thus gaining tacit knowledge, leading to more effective educational interventions. The biodiverse landscape became a living lab for observing children's interactions with each other and their regenerated surroundings. Also included were teachers and community members involved in the project. The rich array of natural settings produced endless, unforgettable learning experiences in the shared outdoors, like these students discovering a caterpillar related to the butterfly living on the plants they look at every day. The students gather the chrysalis, bring it to the classroom terrarium, and spellbound, watch the new butterfly emerge. Dressed up to be a butterfly living in that ecosystem is an expressive emotional step in the ongoing 7-step learning cycle charted here, starting with exploration and discovery. Herb Wong, Washington Elementary School principal and expert in elementary science education, was my outdoor science learning mentor and co-author of Natural Learning. Herb was also a jazz educator and talked about nature-based learning as jazz, as an open-ended process, spontaneous around the edges, as is nature. Over time, we compiled an extensive list of science learning skills provided by the biodiverse environmental yard, many of which, could be argued, depended on living nature. Animation became a creative community extension of the school grounds and environmental yard. Little known in the U.S., animation and similar professional practices with varied names provide skills aligned with playwork in Canada, Europe, Latin America, and parts of Asia. Animation and playwork may be useful interpretation models for particular Michigan State Parks. An after-school program run by a local community artist offered a series of creative workshops one of which explored Native American culture focused on plants with historic utility, such as the tule rush used to make canoes, growing in a yard pond with that purpose in mind. A successful maiden voyage was made on the same pond. Project Play, Playing and Learning in Adaptable Environments, was an inclusive community arts summer program of half-day workshops run by community artists using the same yard environment. This way of working with children collaboratively, helping to facilitate what they have in mind, in this case framed by a predetermined theme, is closely aligned with playwork and adventure play. These progressive practices of cultural work with children have been around for decades and may be relevant to state park practices. A spaceship has crashed on the yard. The emerging space people don't speak English, only space talk. Earth people and spacelings must learn to communicate. Treasure Island, children's version, with treasure from a local thrift store. A pioneer village must be created with the necessary community services, including shelter. African Safari imagines the yard as a jungle with recreations of appropriate wild animals and related adventures. Lastly, some thoughts about dynamic management approaches to creative, inclusive engagement facilitated by adults collaborating with children. Dynamic, because the situation has a degree of creativity and change in addition to normal maintenance procedures, which may need initial adjustment aimed at standardization across park sites. First and foremost is risk management for environments, expectations and behaviors, quite different to those for standardized playground equipment. For natural play spaces, NLI has adopted the balancing risks with benefits approach developed by Play England for non-standard play spaces. The basic premise is that children with a normal developmental process need to continuously take risks in order to learn the skills necessary to navigate environments. In a public space, providers have an obligation to protect children from serious injury by implementing an explicit standard of care, implemented by trained personnel. Advised by legal professionals knowledgeable about the risk management issue and committed to finding solutions, NLI developed an 8-step risk management protocol, which, if correctly administered, would protect children from injury and providers against suit. A second important balancing act is to implement design and management interventions that ensure children can physically engage with biodiverse settings without being adversely impacted. NLI has developed easily implemented, effective plant protection methods to achieve this goal, exemplified in setting examples shared earlier. The aim of management is to balance positive learning impacts for children with acceptable impacts on plants, from which seasonal recovery is possible. These environment and behavior management strategies will vary according to site context. Existing rich biodiversity at one end of the spectrum and regenerated biodiversity from scratch or equipment-based playgrounds at the other. Another way to look at the management spectrum is in terms of cost effectiveness, visual perception, and user acceptance. These variables might be quite different for small, local natural play and learning projects compared to high visibility, high visitation regional projects in state parks. Regardless of context, the overall aim is to create compelling nature-based places that kids and other family members love to visit. Such places evolve from careful, intentional programming, including community participation, matched with appropriate management protocols. Our experience has been that children love to be in nature, especially at an early age when curiosity is the driver. If exposure to nature continues across the stages of childhood and youth, they are more likely to become informed, caring citizens, or citizen scientists, or even environmental professionals, learning to be planetary lifeguards. Many thanks for your attention, and thanks also to the NLI team and 11 Labs for support in creating the presentation.